Premier. It's now 2 o'clock. My name is Ricardo Mackenzie. This is the Standing Committee of the Premier and Constitutional Matters. Going to ask my colleagues here to introduce themselves, and then Dr. Malila and his team to introduce themselves, and then I will set the agenda and the guidance for the meeting going forward. Members of the committee and alternates, if you can introduce yourself, please.
Good afternoon, Chair. Wendy Philander.
Good afternoon, Chair. Melikaya Tagore.
Good afternoon, Chairperson Regan Allen.
Thank you. I would also like to welcome Wasima, Masintle, and Siraj, also working with me on this team this afternoon. And then I'll hand over to Dr. Malila and your team.
Chair, good afternoon, and thank you very much. Also, good afternoon to all the members of Parliament. I think it's a pleasure for us to present to you today. Part of my team, Chair, is that we also have to split some of our forces. You will know Wednesdays are cabinet days. Myself and Mr. Buter, Head of Legal Services, have just stepped out of cabinet, but we're also having some other meetings with the Premier. So our forces in this department have now been split. So with me, I've got my CFO, Driekus Baston, and Alma Guldenes. Driekus is responsible for obviously the entire performance environment in the department, also responsible for Program 1. Then in Program 2, I'll take full responsibility for all that stuff. Mr. Juma is standing in for me in the previous meeting. Then Program 3, I've got Ms. Esterhazy, that is the Program Manager. Program 4, Hilton is in the other meeting, so I've got Augie, or Hilton is here, Hilton Aronson. I've got also Augie de Freitas from Program 4. And then Program 5 is my corporate assurance. Apology for Henriette. I mean, she's got an issue of personal nature, but I mean, I'll deal with it. And then Program 6 is legal services, and I saw Mr. Buter is on this call. So Chair, that's my team, and then obviously I'm supported also by Nosipho, who's actually working within my office. That takes account of the team of the Department of Premier.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody here that I did not recognize this afternoon?
Yes, thank you very much, Chair. Member Branke is here, and good afternoon to you, Chair. Good afternoon to all the other members, honorable members. Good afternoon to the department. And yes, Member Branke is here. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Branke, for joining us. Is there anybody else before we continue?
Good afternoon, Chair and colleagues and officials. It's Cameron Dugmore. Thanks.
Thank you, Member Dugmore. And I saw Member Lecker also join. Good afternoon, Member Lecker.
Good afternoon, Chair and colleagues. Good afternoon to the department. Thank you.
Thank you, colleagues. Colleagues, the first item on the agenda is the first quarter report by the Department of the Premier. And for the record, also Premier Alan Winde is in cabinet, so he's not with us this afternoon. I'll hand over to Dr. Malila. Dr. Malila, do you want us to put out the presentation, or will you guys do it?
Yeah.
Are you muted?
I can do it.
Okay.
From my side, it's probably going to be
easier.
So I just want to check, Chair, if you can actually see the presentation.
We can see the presentation. If you can just put it on the screen on slideshow so we can see the full presentation.
Is that visible, Chair?
That is visible. Thank you.
Wonderful, Chair. I'm going to proceed then. Thank you very much for the opportunity. As I said, represented here. Obviously, I'm the accounting officer, but together with my executive team and the program managers here. So, Chair, I'll take you through our performance for the first quarter for this year. There's about, this slide just captures our overall performance. So, from a financial perspective, we spend about 26.6% of our budget. That's about 465 million of a 1.7 billion rand budget. Chair, you can also see that, I mean, if you just compare it quarter on quarter or notional benchmark perspective, we're sitting at about 25%. With regards to our COE, Chair, that's the cost of employment. You can see, given our own strategies that we've applied in the department, that's now really bearing the fruit, and we only spend about 23.1% of our total COE budget. So in aggregate, Chair, I do not foresee any major significant risk from a spending perspective, particularly if you look at the programs, and you will see in the next slide, when you look at program 4, they've spent about 30% of the budget, but a lot of that is to do with the payment for Microsoft licenses. So you will see as the year passes, that number will come more closer to the notional percentage. So overall, this department achieved 87% of the indicators, with 39 out of the 45 indicators for quarter 1. As the accounting officer, I must also indicate to the committee that I'm satisfied with that performance. What we've done, particularly in this quarter, we focused a lot on tightening our non-financial performance management system through early identification of issues. And then what I've also done is making sure that we strengthen our own internal assurance processes to make sure that if we say we've delivered something, that it is actually there, so the information is reliable, the information is relevant, and the information is also sufficient. So it's really the same kind of test the Auditor General is placing on us. And again, Chair, the marginal deviation, so it's basically between 87 and 100%, is really where we went back and we were refining our planning process, because obviously the year is not linear, and it's really just a learning environment for us. And what we're doing, whatever we learn in a particular quarter, we take it into the next quarter. But in aggregate, Chair, I'm fairly satisfied with both our financial and non-financial performance. Here, this slide just gives you an indication on where we find ourselves from a financial perspective. I've already spoken to it. You can see percentage spent, 26.6%. I've spoken about program 4, Center for Innovation, sitting at 29, and then all the other programs are more or less on par. And then if you look at program 2, that sits at about 12%. A lot of the expenditure in that program will only happen later in the year. A lot of it is project based. A lot of it is linked to our budgetary and planning processes. So you'll see there that later in the year, the stuff will come through. And also in program 2, there's a lot of earmark funding that sits in that program that we've received from the Treasury. In relation to our indicators, you can see we have 45 indicators. We've achieved 39, and we have not achieved 6 of them. And many of these indicators where we say we haven't achieved it, the 6, many of them have progressed. Okay, so it's, the system basically works. You either fully achieve it, or it's either 1 or 0. So in program 2, there's only 1, and then obviously program 3 and program 5, but I'll give you a little bit of more detail on that. Obviously, what this performance or this APP performance also don't take into account is there are many other things that is happening in the department that has not been necessarily reflected in the APP document or in the indicators, particularly as it relates to our role as custodians, our role within COVID, and then just the general support role that we are playing to the executive. Okay, moving to program 1, there is no issue there with regards to those 3 or those indicators in those programs. You can see on the targets achieved, the issue on the ECM, we've achieved that one. Moving on communications, we've achieved it. Moving to program 2, Chair, this is where we had 6 indicators. We've achieved 5 of them. There's only 1 that we haven't achieved, and I will talk to that one just now. So on the quarterly reviews, that's been achieved. The quarterly release of provincial data, that's been achieved. The issue in terms of data governance has been achieved. And then creation of strategic partnerships, there's no issue there. And then also the issue around the priority programs, that's not been achieved. That's been achieved. Where we have not achieved, Chair, is the issue around the quarterly financial and non-financial report, particularly for the Office of the Children Commissioner. And here I must indicate to the committee that I received the report before the end of June. There were certain areas, and remember we reported on this the last time, that I wasn't entirely happy with. I wanted her to strengthen the report, and given obviously the accountability arrangement, the 2 of us haven't had our meetings face to face. So I commented on a report, I've sent it back, and then I received the final report back from her in the month of July. So it was around the performance standards. What were those things that I wanted to see as accounting officer? And obviously also, I had to make sure, that we don't blur the accountability line. So as I said, corrective action, that report has already been submitted. So if I reflect back today, there's not an issue with regards to that. Then program 3, people management, 9 indicators, 7 achieved, 2 has not been achieved. And you can see, Chair, it's really in the area of organizational development and also people training and empowerment. On program or sub-program 3.2.1, the issue around the culture program, no issue. The issue around the modernization projects, no issue. On the 2 areas where we've not achieved the targets, it's really in the areas of the percentage of job description formats project implementation, which is a multi-year project. The reason for deviation, Chair, as indicated there, the final operational breakdown of the targets had to take operational realities into account. So everything is not linear, so we don't deliver 25%, 25%, 25%, 25%. We've got operational plans that we put together, and you can see there our targets for the first quarter should be 13.5, 49.3, 72.7, and 100%. But overall, Chair, the 3 final deliverables for June were completed in parallel with planned deliverables for July. You can already see that there's no risk. I mean, that's been done in July, and that has been done without impacting on our overall deliverables for the project. And so the same information holds for some of the other areas. Then, Chair, if you look at people training and empowerment, also, an area where we haven't achieved a target, we're looking at reconfiguring what we're doing at the PTI, the Provincial Training Institute out at Cromaria. The requirement was obviously for a roadmap to be approved. Given our financial constraints, we took a decision to actually not just outsource it because we wanted to take co-responsibility for what needs to be done at Cromaria. So we decided that we will rather develop an implementation roadmap in collaboration with some external expertise that we're currently bringing on board. And really, Chair, this is something that we are monitoring at the top level. So I'm sure as the year progresses, we're not going to have a major issue with regards to this one. To me, the end game is re-looking at Cromaria, linking it obviously to our values and our culture, particularly the culture of innovation. And if I can achieve that at the end of the year, I will be very happy. But I mean, I will come back to the committee and brief the committee. Then, Chair, on people management practices, you can see there's no issue, 100% achievement. Moving to program 4, there's no issue on program 4. It's the full achievement on all the areas. Strategic ICT services is the issue around digital, Western Cape digital channels, the e-government channels, the number of Cape access centers. We planned 74, there's 75. Hilton is here if there are any questions with regards to that. Our digital skills training, no issue. The resolution rate with regards to our contact center, Chair, you can see we set a 97.5% with a planned target of 95. Then our systems uptime is close to 100%, and we've got systems that monitors this all the time. And then the network uptime is also well over 99%. That basically means we're up every day. Then the turnaround time, for finalizing ITC services based request, you can see that we are below the 6-day benchmark, just below that. So we've achieved that. And then also the number of computer users that's been equipped with modern office software is, in fact, that number is almost 4-fold the number that we've planned. But a lot of this is also to do with a new way of work and obviously making sure that people can access the network even if they're not in the office. Then, Chair, with regards to the rollout of our connected government infrastructure services, our site has been upgraded to 100 megabytes per second. You can see that that's been exceeded. The sites that's been provided, from a public Wi-Fi perspective, the hotspots, we've also exceeded our target. And then also the workplaces that's been equipped with the corporate network, you can see that we've also exceeded that. Then with regards to our business application solutions, 100% compliance, 100% achievement, services available to the citizens from a mobile application platform, 34 planned, we've delivered on 34. And all of this is obviously backed by information, backed by data, and it's been checked. And then obviously also the number of Western Cape citizen channels that's been digitized is the one. Moving to corporate assurance, Chair, this is basically internal audit, enterprise risk management, forensic services, and corporate communication. Here you can see, Chair, we had no issues with provincial forensic services. I mean, we're 4, and we've delivered 4 corporate communications with a number of communications that's been issued. That's 3. We delivered all 3. The areas where we've not fully performed, but I'll also give you the reasons for that, is on enterprise risk management, where the target was 2, and we've achieved basically 1. And then in internal audit, the target was 3, and we achieved 1. On the risk management side, Chair, you can see, and this is the point I made earlier, it's either you fully achieve it, it's either 1 or 0. Here you can see, Chair, that we had a planned target of 24%. That's the percentage completion of activities in the approved enterprise risk management implementation plan. We've achieved 23.44. I mean, that is as close as you can get to 24, but it's not 24. So therefore, it is a non-achievement. And in fact, Chair, the only reason here is again, the issue around just translating the annual target into quarterly targets, did not consider, the quarterly deliverable plan. That's now been corrected. And obviously, through our own internal quarterly processes where we look at the targets, we assess it as an external management team. We've now actioned corrective actions internally. And from where I'm sitting, there's no risk to that. This one, Chair, and internal audit recommendations incorporated. There's no issue there. And these are the internal audit targets that we've not achieved. And it's primarily also because of not taking into account sort of our quarterly deliverable plans. That's now been corrected. And as I've indicated, you will see a shift during the year. Again, Chair, those reports that's not been finalized have been signed off on the 22nd of July. So again, for me as the accounting officer, there's no risk. So you will see some of these things coming through the year. Within the forensic services, you can see we've basically doubled the amount of anti-fraud and corruption awareness sessions. And then also on fraud prevention activities allocated to PFS implemented, you can see that's almost threefold. Target of 25% and our actual deliverables at 65%. Then on the number of investigations and the recommendations followed up, Chair, no issue. They're on board. Corporate communications, in fact, they've over-delivered in one area around the reports on improvements, to create public trust. They had 1, they delivered 2. Moving to program 6, Chair, legal services. There's no issue there. They've also delivered on all their requirements, particularly with regards to advisory and governance services. You can see we've almost doubled the amount of training opportunities that we provided to employees of Western Cape government. Obviously, a lot of this is also to do with the fact that we can now provide these training courses on a digital platform. And you can see, the idea is also to extend it to public entities as well as municipalities. So we've planned 15, we've delivered almost double on that. So in conclusion, for this department, spending is largely on track. I mean, from where I'm sitting, no spending risk, no delivery risk have been identified. I mean, the overall findings indicated the performance for this vote, adheres to the standards that's been set, with regards to SMART, also with regards to what the Auditor General asked of us. So it's, I mean, I can place reliability, it's sufficient, it's relevant, and I think it's therefore consistent with performance information. What we've also done as an EXCO, obviously we take these matters seriously. We also discuss it at the audit committees. And as an EXCO, we've met on our performance. We've looked at it. We've suggested certain improvements with regards to quality and reporting. We've also now institutionalized an electronic system, that monitors our performance. So with regards to that, I'm fairly satisfied. And the last bullet basically wraps it up here. That says that AO, I'm happy with the performance in Q1 for this vote and do not foresee any major delivery risk for the remainder of 2021, 2022. So Chair, that takes into account, the performance of this department. And again, I want to say thank you to all the program managers, the managers for, I think, the sterling job that they continue to do, within this department. And I mean, as an accounting officer, I'm very proud to have a team like this, supporting the deliverables of this department, but also supporting the deliverables of government to make a greater impact in the citizens. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, HOD. That has to be a record for a presentation. 44 slides in under 20 minutes. Thank you very much. Colleagues, I'm going to, there's no further input from anybody else, right, on this particular matter?
No, Chair, not from our
Thank
side.
you.
That's our input. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Colleagues, I'll take some hands for questions. I see while my colleagues are going through the notes, can you take some of my questions in the meantime? I'm going to start on slide number 18, people training on page number 18. I think your slide number 18. Can we just get an understanding, obviously from the non-health and non-education staff, under people training and empowerment, what was done over the last, during the quarter for the mental health of all the Western Cape government employees? And then the second one program I've done, and I think I've raised it last year, what have we done on programs to empower people? Because there's obviously people's training and empowerment, and particularly to work from home, and perhaps the IT guys and the HR guys can tell us on that. On slide number 21, I wrote here Cromeria. Can you just tell us, is Cromeria not fully in use or not in use? Are you doing it? And there's another slide on page 42 where you talked about the legal training that you've done. Is that training only online? I know that you mentioned digital. And what sort of money are we spending on Cromeria at the moment? Then for me, on slide number 25, on the usage of the Cape Access Centres, when we get the figures and you said that Hilton is here, what sort of issues are people raising at the moment at the Cape Access Centres? And have you had any COVID cases at those access centres? And is it fully functional? The services that we delivered before COVID-19, are we delivering that same service during this period? And I've seen this at 7 Wells Street Centre. Do we give the staff at these centres, on the necessary PPE to ensure that they're well protected? And then on page number 32, under Provincial Forensic Services, on the 8 cases that you've done, I think that was on slide 36, if my notes are correct. On the Provincial Forensic Services, I mean, we've seen the SIU reports, I've read through them. Does our forensic services works with the Hawks, for example, if there is? And like I said, I've privileged to go through that report, and luckily there's nothing for us at this point in time, touch wood. But do they work with them, and do they provide them all the necessary information to come to that, to their conclusion? And then another question I have is under audit risks. Given that we are not as physically possible before COVID-19, you can go to the various departments, you can collect documentation, you can check files. In the Department of the Premier, how are you guys managing that at the moment, given those constraints? And on slide number 36, one of the things that you talked about was fraud prevention activities. I think it was the second bullet point. What sort of fraud prevention activities are we doing in the department? And if you can just share some more with that. And also on the page 42, on the legal training that you've done, what sort of legal training are we doing? I think that covers me for the first round. Members, any questions from your side? Otherwise, I'll continue for a while. I think there was about 13.
I am covered, Chairperson.
13, 14 questions from me if I look at my notes. You can respond to that in the meantime. Thank you.
Chair, thank you very much. I'm going to ask the team to assist. In fact, on the mental health issue, Chair, it's one of the stuff that's kind of top on the agenda for Cabinet. And I mean, you're well aware that one of the priorities of this entire government is the issue around wellness, and mental health sits squarely in that. So Louise will tell you a little bit more around what we're doing in that space. There are many activities that she and Johan is doing. It's part of our training intervention, and we're also now in the process of even employing graduate interns that have got honors degrees in this particular space to even help some of the departments to deal with this whole issue. And it's not just about our staff, it's even, the environment with which they work, Chair. You know that sometimes people go to a hospital and then they want to offload their problems on the nurses and the doctors and stuff like that. And there's nobody that kind of, come in between a nurse that needs to listen to some of the complaints that's coming from households and need to do a nursing work. So the plan is that as a Department of Premier, we're going to lead on that project, and we're going to make people available, particularly to education, health, and social development. But I think Louise can say a little bit more on that. Okay, Hilton can, and Louise can also deal with what is it that we are doing to empower people, empower our staff, and then Hilton can obviously deal with empowerment of staff as far as it relates to the CAI stuff. And then I'm going to ask Lucas to respond to the two issues in the legal environment around legal training, whether it's online or not, and what are the kind of legal training that we're doing. And then my CFO can come in, Chair, on the issues about fraud prevention activities. That's also something that we take very serious. So we always send the message, whether it's in our newsletters internally in the department. Luckily, we've also got Ruthven that's responsible for forensic services. So he also builds it into, fraud prevention training initiatives. You can see on the one slide, I think we've delivered almost 3 times on the amount of fraud prevention activities than what was planned. So we bring it continuously to the attention of staff, because obviously we take governance and governance-related matters quite serious. So Hilton, I'm going to ask you to deal with issues on slide 25. So it's the Cape Access Centres, issues around what are the issues, COVID stuff, are they fully functional, and the issue around 7 Wells Street. And then I'm also going to ask you, what have we done to empower our staff to enable them to work from home. So Hilton, if you can just deal with that, then I'll then dish out the other questions.
Sorry, Dr. Malila, I wasn't particularly saying, I'm just using an example about 7 Wells Street, like 7 Wells Street. So it was, yeah.
Okay.
Thanks,
Hilton.
Eugene. Thanks, Eugene. Thanks, Chairperson and members. Good afternoon, and also to my colleagues who have not spoken to today yet. I'll start with the working from home. I think that is quite a critical question. Chairperson, when the pandemic hit, I think CI was one of the key teams that had to jump into action to make sure that our employees are able to work from home. So you're aware that we've invested in broadband considerably over the past few years. And because of broadband, we could migrate a lot of our workloads that we had on-prem, our applications, we could migrate to the cloud, in the Azure cloud. And then we also embarked on rolling out Office 365, of which Teams is one of the products in Office 365. However, Teams have not been rolled out to everybody. So when the pandemic hit, we could migrate more than 10,000 people over to Teams because we already had the product set in our environment. Our staff could work from home because many of the applications were cloud-based. They were in the Azure cloud. And then we also had to provide VPNRA, virtual private network, remote access to those staff members who needed to have access to the corporate systems like BAS, Logos, and Personal. That's not necessarily in the cloud. So we have provided that to them. We've also procured at that stage more than 400 data cards so that your critical staff members can have access to the internet and access our services and access the applications. So there's a lot of work that has gone into that space. As it relates to the contact center, remember your contact center needs to be on all the time. And the one challenge that we have was the limited number of lines coming into our province, into our contact center. And we procured a contact center on demand solution, which means, once again, a cloud-based solution. And at this stage, most of our contact center staff are working from home. So we have the situation where the solution that we've implemented enabled them to work from home. And because our contact center is very small and it would have been very congested, so 50 to 60% of those staff members work from home, but they receive the calls as per normal, and the management team who is responsible for the contact center can monitor the calls as per normal contact center. So that was quite critical. Importantly, though, National Treasury has put out RT15, which is a contract from which we can procure data and cell phone services. So that will create more efficiencies, not only in .P, but also in other departments when they want to procure data services for the staff. And then lastly, we had to strengthen security at the edge. And when I'm talking about the edge, at the house, so we had to make sure that we improve security for those devices that's now been taken home, outside of the corporate environment, and surely they'll be prone to more cyber attacks in that space. We've also launched quite a few information security awareness programs with video clips to our staff members so they can be aware of what's happening, and also gave some guidance as to how they need to configure their routers at home in order to not to be able to people to hack into their routers. And then lastly, I've just recently as recently as Monday, obtain approval from PTM, where we can now implement multi-factor authentication, where people can, there's another authentication step that you need to go through in order to access your laptop. And that is, we've piloted with more than 3,000 people. We're now rolling it out to everybody else. As it relates to the Cape Access Program, Chairperson, the Cape Access programs, the centers are fully functional, apart from the fact that we need to apply social distancing in the center. So it will be one seat is open, one seat is occupied, and so we can accommodate less people in those centers. Of the 75, we have 73 that's open at the moment. 2 of them, which is Vusa and Nduli, they're not open in Nduli because there was a fire that broke out and the municipality needs to rebuild the library in which our center was accommodated. And the second one is Worcester, where the municipality is busy with some renovations, but that one we foresee will be open pretty soon. Are there any cases of COVID? Yes, Chairperson, there were cases and we keep a record of that, but at this stage there's not any current cases of COVID. And do we give staff PPE? Yes, we have provided staff with PPE over time. And also at in terms of the equipment, the PPE equipment and the sanitizers that they require, we do provide that to our staff at the Cape Access Centers. Thanks, DG. Thanks, Chairperson.
Hilton, thank you very much. I'm now going to ask Lucas to respond to the 2 issues in the legal environment.
Thank you, Chair. I can confirm that all of the training that we presented were done electronically. It's been a bit of a roller coaster ride with the different alert levels and lockdown levels. So everything was done electronically, and the training focused predominantly on the Protection of Personal Information Act, which I'm sure the committee knows came into operation on the 1st of July. So it was to be expected that in the 3 months prior to it coming into operation, there would suddenly be an increase in demand for training in that space. And then we also focused to a lesser extent on supply chain management. But at the moment, or at least for this quarter, all of the attention was on POPIA. Thank you, Chair.
Lucas, thank you for that. Can I now ask Louise to just speak to the issues around mental health and what is it that we're doing, particularly, to build capacity and the process that we're doing with regards to staff, high level.
Yes, Chairperson and members. As you know, we've got an employer health and wellness service provider in place, which is Metropolitan Health. And during this time, they provide group facilitation sessions or individual counseling or debriefing sessions. So that's available to staff right through all 13 departments. The DG also, regarding the topic of mental health, has issued letters from his desk on a weekly basis to encourage staff and to talk openly about mental health issues and where they should revert to in terms of if they need any assistance. As the DG has mentioned, we're also now in the process of employing interns to assist with mental health issues right through the province. In terms of Comaria, the training was provided online during this quarter. We are preparing to do online as well as a hybrid approach to training when the lockdown levels go down. In terms of working from home, we've got a guideline out to all HODs, and the guideline is just regarding alternative working arrangements. So what is it that they can put in place and to provide alternative working arrangements for the staff during this whole time? Thank you.
Thank you, Louise. Then, Chair, there's just 2 other people. Just because if you can just talk about the fraud prevention activities, and then, Chair, between myself and Blanche, we'll just quickly touch on the issues of how we manage audit risk, and then obviously the cases within the forensic services. But it's more about whether we're working with entities, and I mean I can confirm that. We're working with CHAPS, we're working with these law enforcement agencies where required. And Ruthven, that's responsible for that unit, I mean, he's quite familiar, on how to deal with those respective processes. So we are a willing cooperator in many of these things. And then on the audit risk stuff, it's like what the Auditor General is doing. We've developed processes where we either ask information from departments, they submit the stuff to us electronically. We agree with them on the extent of the audit plans. Your audit committees are fully functional. It's all online, but it's fully functional. And the audits also happens, a lot of it electronically, but I mean, there's no issue in that particular space. I don't know, Blanche, if you maybe want to add anything, you can just indicate to me. And so, Vickers, can I ask you just to deal with the fraud prevention activities in our vote?
Thanks, BG. Thanks, Chair, members. Just to note that the fraud prevention activities is, as much as PFS has a reactive role to play when there are cases, from those instances, they basically develop a inventory of proactive messaging that they then share with staff. So in other words, what's happening in the space, why is it happening, and what staff needs to do in terms of those. For instance, one of the messages is if you don't report it, you support it. That's important for staff to know. There's also, in terms of the Prevention and Combating of Corrupt Activities Act, any fraud or suspected fraud above 100,000 Rand must be reported. It's actually an offense not to report it. So it's a lot about the responsibility of staff. And it's also about the ethics, the code of conduct, what that requires of them. And just making sure that we spread the news that we have absolutely zero tolerance for fraud and so on. And that most of our staff knows, from an awareness raising perspective, that it's an evil that must be rooted out. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Chair. Okay, then lastly, I just want to give Blanche an opportunity. Just if she wants to add, then I think we've taken care of all your questions. Blanche?
Thank you, DG. Through you, Chairperson. Just to add to what the DG said, so last year we've realized that there is some delays in audit. So what we have done is that we now upfront have discussions with departments in terms of working arrangements and their record keeping particularly. And we've built that into our processes so that we don't experience any delays. And thus far, it's been working quite well for us. So there's no any risk of non-delivery for us on the internal audit side. Thank you.
Chair, thank you very much. Can I hand back to you? I think that takes care of all your, 15 questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I just go back to Cromaria? I think one of the questions I just saw my note is spending. What sort of, I presume now that Cromaria is not in action, there is a saving during COVID and before COVID. And then on the Provincial Forensic Services of those 8 cases, can you just give us an indication what sort of cases or what sort of cases was reported and how did it come to the attention of the Provincial Forensic Services team? And then my last follow-up question, I see the other members are still checking the notes, is just to Hilton on the Cape Access Centres. Those 2 that are not functional, obviously well done on the 71 that are functional. Do we have a timeline on when those 2 will be open? And then my last question actually to Hilton. You mentioned 50 staff members that you're currently supporting from home. We know sometimes it can be difficult for people to operate from home, except for the technical support that you provide for those individuals who are working from home, or perhaps HR can assist as well. What sort of, how can I put it? Do we actually see if the homes are set up to ensure that people function optimally from home? And I know Hilton mentioned security. Some people might be single mothers with kids. What sort of support from that perspective are we as a department from a human resource perspective providing our staff members? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that. I mean, I'm sure Hilton can also respond to that. On the issue of Cromaria, Chair, a lot of the spending in Cromaria is fixed expenditure. Okay, so it's salaries, then the buildings are there, and then the operational expenditure we we primarily recoup it from departments. So obviously we'd incur it and then recoup it from departments. So it's basically a zero-sum game. So we're not seeing many savings coming through in that space, and any savings that's coming through, we've now invested that obviously into our IT environment to make sure that we can deliver some of these courses electronically. Why Cromaria is not in use? The main reason is that Cromaria is a quarantine and isolation facility, because remember they've got a couple of beds there, where people stay over. So that whole place is being used currently as a Q&I facility, and therefore we're not getting close to the place in relation to delivering training opportunities. Yeah, I can always supply you with the exact spend at Cromaria, but as I said, a big portion of that which relates to salaries and then fixed expenditure. I'm going to ask Hilton just to respond to the Cape Access Centre Chair in relation to the stuff that's been dealt with at forensics. I mean, I can give you a list, and I mean, I'll respond to that in writing. Obviously, without going into the detail of the cases, okay, because a lot of the cases are still also being investigated. But there are many ways of cases being reported. So sometimes we get a tip-off as an accounting officer. Sometimes we get cases through the hotline, and sometimes an accounting officer would refer certain cases, particularly after internal control and internal audit have looked at it. If there's any element of fraud, corruption, then that gets referred to our forensic services, and that's generally how all the accounting officers operate. Obviously, there is a separation in terms of the relationship that forensic services has with each of the departments, but as it relates to the Department of the Premier, those are generally the sources or where I would get my information from, and then would refer it to forensic services. Hilton, can you just respond to the last question from the chair?
Sure, thanks, Gigi. Chairperson, as it relates to the Cape Access one, the one in Dooley is a bit of a challenge because we're dependent on the municipality to finalize their process, and obviously there's procurement process on the part of the municipality that they have to go through or before they can really start with but repairing that facility. So we do not have a definite timeline, and I will find out from the municipality what is the outer timeline and report back to the committee. As it relates to the Worcester one, they set a maximum of 6 months, and we're hoping that centre will be ready for us in October again. So with the 6 months should be in by October, and we're hoping that we'll be ready and be able to be fully operational by October. As it relates to the staff that's operating from home, and just a correction, Chairperson, it's not 50 staff members. I said we issued more than 400 data cards. Some members have their own Wi-Fi at home and their own facilities at home. But with regards to checking whether they adequately set up, it's a bit of a challenge to deal with the whole of the provincial government because we do draw the line. But what we have provided when the pandemic broke out, departments allowed staff to take the assets home. They obviously had to complete the asset removal forms, and they had to take accountability for it. Most of our staff actually have laptops. So what we made sure is that there's proper security built into those devices that they take them. But as it relates to going there and physically checking, I don't think we have the manpower to check on each and every one. When they do submit a query or complaint, then we do address that also. Thanks, Gigi.
Yeah, I think that's it from our side. Just on the Cromaria, we've the total there is 36 million, and as I've indicated, most of it is COE, so 30 million of that is COE, and it obviously also includes a small component, relating to an office that deals with stuff like bursaries and training and capacity building, and that office is in town. Thanks, Chair. Back to you.
Thank you. So I've written here 50 contact center staff. I see my notes here, Hilton. Is that separate from the 400 data cards you issued, or is that part of the 400 data cards?
My apologies, Chair. The 50 contact center staff. No, it's part of, we've added to we initially had 400 and we added to that to accommodate the growth in the contact center staff. But so my apologies. Yes, the contact center staff, as you speak about the contact center staff, they predominantly working from home, and there we have the managers also engage those staff members to check whether they have, because that's our specific team. That's a .P team, and that's part of my team specifically, and we have to check whether they are properly sorted to provide the service, because you cannot have a contact center person that doesn't have the proper equipment at home in order to deal with the calls. And they're front-facing, they're citizen-facing, so they need to have the proper equipment.
Thank you very much. Colleagues, some other members on the line, any further questions from your side?
Yes, I announced myself as present, Chair.
Honourable Member Murray, you can continue.
Yes. I'm a bit late and I apologize that I couldn't be here from the start, but from what I heard, I picked up certain red lights. Number one, I heard the DJ say, if you don't report it, then you support it. I know a lady who reported it and she was killed in front of her house. I think they're still investigating who murdered her. And that is in a case before the court now, senior official. So if you want staff to report fraud or corruption, what protection do you offer them? Well, there's just going to be another number in the book of murders of witnesses. Secondly, the staff working from home, and you say they have laptops. Whose laptops are they? Is it out of their pocket? Do you provide them with these laptops? And if the tools of the trade they must pay for, did you notify SARS that they might qualify for a rebate for using their homes and their tools at home, paid with money for which they already paid taxes to get these things free during the course of their jobs, performing their jobs? So I just would like to know if the Premier intends giving Charles a report on these staff members working from home and then letting them claim against their tax returns for having made use of their own homes, their own time, inconveniencing themselves and having to buy their own ink, paper, and using their own laptops. Is that something which the Premier's Department is thinking about? I will stop there for the moment and just say that my concern here is the department looking properly after staff inconveniences to keep this province running, but their homes is now a parliamentary building? Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Morea. I see no further hands. The DJ and your team, you can respond.
Chair, we can respond to that, and also thank you, Member Morea, for that question. In fact, I want to confirm that we've been very proactive in this space with regards to working from home. In fact, there's a policy document which we've taken through all the governance processes via PTM. We've consulted, even I took it to the unions, we took it to cabinet, and we call it, it's a flexible working from home arrangement, and it includes all these issues about, you know, the time that you spend, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then on the issue of the tools, I mean, the computers that they are using belong to government, and I think Driekers have spoken about the controls here that we're putting in, and Hilton spoke about the additional support that we are providing. The issue around SARS, and I mean, here again, we've been proactive. I mean, I've issued a circular to all the departments, and in fact, we've taken it a little step further. We've even given them a pro forma letter. SARS has now issued a directive that allow people that work from home to claim certain expenditures back from SARS through their personal income tax processes, and they had to just get a letter from the employer indicating that they're working from home. So we need to indicate how many days a week do they work from home, and then they need to indicate obviously what percentage of their house are they using for official purposes, or put it differently, what percentage of their house are they using to generate income, and that they can write back against their personal income tax. So with regards to those measures, I mean, there's no need for Premier to make any announcements on that. Administratively, we've already dealt with it, so staff is actually aware of the issue. Then, Chair, on the obviously the protection that we provide to staff, I don't know if Driekers can maybe talk to that, but I mean, we encourage staff, to report fraudulent activities. I mean, the examples that happened up in the northern parts of the country, where people reported stuff. I mean, that's quite unfortunate. I mean, from where we're sitting, we do definitely not support that. But notwithstanding that, we're encouraging staff to speak out against stuff that is wrong. So we provide them the kind of protection that is needed, and obviously also the issues around non-disclosure. I mean, we take those kind of things very, very serious. If somebody's reported something, we will not disclose who it came from, with regard to that, but rather do the necessary investigation and put people to book. So yeah, those are the two questions that's been faced by member Mare. I don't know, maybe Lucas, if you maybe want to say something, maybe it's around maybe protection of staff from a legal perspective. Is there anything you want to add?
Yeah, DG, I think, look, I mean, it is a tricky area in the sense that, the employer does not lose its responsibility in terms of health and safety. But, I mean, what we've done is, and as you've mentioned, I think we've gone all out, I think, to make staff aware of the fact that, whilst they're working at home, they also have to take responsibility for their own safety and well-being. But yeah, it is a tricky terrain, DG. But I think we've done what we could as an employer to make sure that staff are fully empowered to understand exactly what is expected of them, whilst they have this flexible arrangement, being able to work at home. Thanks, DG.
Thank you.
Chair, back to you.
Yeah, thank you, Honourable Leke and Honourable Klago. In that order.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon. My first question, Chair, is around the forensic investigations that have been conducted by the department. I want to check first as to whether there is a turnaround time frame in terms of investigations that is conducted by the department, and whether there are instances where the investigation has taken longer than it was envisaged. What has been processes put in place in that regard, and what were the hiccups that maybe the investigators have come across with, which led to a longer period than anticipated? And three, whether we can get or shed some light in relation to those investigations actually that have been conducted. Then lastly, Chair, it is around the issue of Cromreer. Is there an instance or is there a chance that another service provider could be utilized other than Cromreer itself? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Member Klago.
Yeah, okay, thanks, Chair. Yeah, mine is on the on program 5 on risk management. Indeed, we see that the department planned around 24%, but there was an underachievement. But even though it's less than a percentage, I just wanted to get clarity in that regard, that what could have been the hiccup not to be complete the entire 24%. And then on the internal audits, if you check the 5.3.1, it said your target was 30% and you have managed to achieve by July. You talk about July, 19%. Has this maybe been changed in terms of update up until to date? It might happen that on July, when you were compiling the document, it was at 19%. You might have achieved more by now. And then maybe what could be the challenges around that? Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. And just a final question from my side, DG, and perhaps the colleagues in HR can assist. The contact center with Metropolitan that provides the mental and social support, is that a 24-hour call center or is it just an 8 to 5? And how widely is that advertised in the department? And that's everything from our side. Members, any further questions from the DG and the department?
If I may, Premier. I mean, sorry, I'm just being futuristic, sorry.
Member Mare, continue, please.
I just wanted to know, maybe the DG can say this is not on an agenda, but I know that the Children's Commissioner is part of the Premier's department. How prepared are you for her? Can she hit the floor running or can't she? Are you fully prepared to accommodate her budget-wise and support-wise? Because she's going to need very, very strong support to rely on. How prepared are you, DG, the Premier's department, for the advent of the much long-awaited Children's Commissioner, which Helen Zille really didn't like?
Thank you, DG. You can speak to the budget perspective of the Children's Commission. The other comments, Minister Mare's views, Honourable Member Mare's views. Thank you.
Yeah, no, definitely. Chair, I can recall, I think Member Mare had some technical challenges. There's been an extensive briefing, when was it, last week, on
yes.
only the commissioners. So I will gladly share the presentation, you know, or maybe ask the committee people to share it. But I mean, I'm aware that he had issues. Yeah.
Share it with him.
So the real issue, Member Mare, is that I mean, we've been ready from day one. The Children's Commissioner has been in office since June last year. I've given a full report to this Parliament. There are some challenges that relate to the budget, but between myself and the Children's Commissioner, I think we're working together quite nicely, and we've done what we had to do as a department to make sure that she's sort of settled down. And obviously the next step in our activities is to try and sort out some permanent accommodation for her, and then also to try and see, you know, if we can lobby the Treasury to add a little bit of more money to her to at least sort out the institution, because we've only received 5 million per annum and about 3 million for permanent accommodation. So I think, Chair, that settles the Children's Commissioner. Then, Chair, with regards to the forensic investigations, I'm not aware of any investigations that have run over particular timeframes. Obviously, this team is a highly professional team. I mean, they try and do these investigations in the quickest time possible. So if I report something, whether it's fraud or maladministration, you know, I would engage with the head of the forensic unit. They would give me a sense of, you know, this investigation may take a month or 2 months, but obviously you don't know what you find during the investigation that might expand the time. But I'm not aware of any investigation that Ruthven and his team has done that has gone grossly over time, or I'm not aware of any major hiccups. I have committed that I think I'll rather prefer to give a response in writing with regards to the 8 cases, okay, without obviously going into too much detail, so that you're just aware of what the content of those cases are. And in fact, Chair, it's generally categorized under 5 categories. So I will be able to say to you, case number X, what is the outcome? And it might be fraud, corruption, irregularity, non-compliance, or theft. And then I will also indicate to you what is it that we've done with regards to each of those cases. Again, you know, given the POPIA requirements, you know, without going into a lot of detail. Chair, the question on Cromeria, I think Member Lekker asked that if we can't use another service provider. As I've indicated, I think we are actually busy with let's call it reorganizing or rethinking where we're going with Cromeria. Obviously, what Cromeria also does as part of the training interventions, we are working with universities, we're working with major training institutions out there, but it is our school of government, you know, that we have typically in the Western Cape, but we've got a couple of bright ideas in terms of where we want to go, particularly, you know, with the campus at Cromeria. Then, Chair, the question that's been raised by Member Trejo under risk management. I mean, Chair, you can see there it's a marginal adjustment. It's less than 1%, and it's really around aligning your operational plan to the quarterly processes. And as you're well aware, Chair, is that everything is not linear. So you don't do maybe 3 investigations, 3. There are certain first quarters generally, or the last quarter is generally you're planning for the next year. Your first quarter is generally where you execute certain responsibilities. Second quarter, execute and report, and also you go back and check whether it's been implemented. And then your last quarter is generally again where you're going for the next year. So it's a virtuous cycle all the time. and it's quite tricky to get the alignment in terms of your quarterly deliverables correct, to get it correctly aligned with your APP. So it's something that we are working on, and you can see there it's kind of on the margin. So there's no major issue in that space. And then I think with regards to internal audit, it's exactly the same thing. It's what I reported earlier. And those reports were basically signed off during the month of July. So technically, we should have had 13%, 27%, 50 or 75%, and then 100%. But we added almost like 25, 25, 25. But it's something that we are correcting. And the point I want to make, Chair, is that in terms of our planning, we've got detailed operational plans in place that underpin everything that we do. But things also happen, you know, and then if certain things happen, we are also agile, we adjust our response, and we will be able to respond to department. That is why I said in aggregate that I'm not concerned at this stage, you know, around any performance issues in this department. And then Louise, if you can maybe just respond on the issue of Metropolitan 24 hours versus 8 hours. I mean, those are service providers. Louise?
Yes, Chair. The service is provided 24/7, 365. Thank you.
Thank you.
Simple as
Thank
that.
you,
Thank you very much. And just as a matter of interest, do you know how many? I mean, obviously you advertise this internally within all your staff, and how is the take up of the service been from the 80,000 employees?
Chair, I don't have the numbers right here with me, but I can provide it.
Okay.
But we share it internally within departments, and then every time we communicate in terms of your wellness, we also share the contact details that they can phone. Thank you, Chair.
Excellent, 24/7. Thank you very much. Colleagues, there seem to be no further hands raised, so I can thank the HOD and his department for coming through. We do appreciate it. If there's any request for further documentation, we'll send that in writing. So thank you, HOD and your team, and thank you for keeping our 80,000 staff members safe and healthy during this difficult period of COVID-19. And to you and your team, your management team, and everybody else, thank you for your time. We really appreciate it. And you have a lovely day, and the committee will continue with our work.
Thank you very much, Chair. Also, thank you to all the members, and thank you particularly to the Department of the Premier's team. I will dial off, Chair.
Thank you.
Chair. Thanks, EG.
Colleagues, can we go to the draft minutes of the 1st of September, please? Wasima? Wasima, are you here?
I am Chairperson. Lizette's also here, so she's going to
Oh,
put it. Yeah.
thank you, Lizette. Page 1. See all of you that were present at that meeting. You can go to page 2. The committee resolved to invite the Provincial Treasury. Thank you. Page 3. That's everybody that was in attendance. Thank you. Can I have a summary to adopt the minutes, please?
Can they scroll up so I can see if my name is there, Chairperson?
It was on page 1.
Okay. Okay, yeah.
I move that we adopt.
I'll second that.
Thank you. If we can go to Okay, that's done. Colleagues, we received the letter which was emailed to you. Sorry, I saw the hand went up. Honorable Philanda, Honorable Lekker.
Sorry, apologies, Chair. I'm taking it down. It was for the adoption of the minutes. Thank you.
Okay,
It's a legacy hand, Chair. I'll put it down.
thank you. Let's remove the legacy hands. Colleagues, just for your information, we received a draft letter from the National Parliament, the ad hoc committee on the 18th Amendment Bill last week, which was referred to us on Thursday morning in terms of the rules of Parliament. And the letter, which was emailed to you, requested feedback from the committee on the draft bill by Friday. I wrote back to the chairperson to indicate it's obviously Dr. Matsueha, or Advocate Matsueha, sorry, to indicate it's a short notice to inform the committee on Thursday that they want feedback from the committee on the 18th Amendment Bill by Friday, 5 o'clock. And I requested an extension from Advocate Matsueha, who's the chairperson of the ad hoc committee, to at least today, so we could have had a meeting on Monday or meeting yesterday, where we could discuss it amongst ourselves on the way forward. They then responded on Friday afternoon, I think, and informed us that they cannot provide us an extension on there because their timelines is quite short. I then subsequently wrote back and informed the Advocate Matsueha that given the timelines is short and in the spirit of the Constitution, that does require legislatures to obviously have proper timelines and input, that we won't be giving input now and we'll wait until the bill officially comes to us, and then we do our normal processes where we do public hearings, and which is what we normally do in terms of the lawmaking process. And that's why I've put it, just this item on the agenda, so you know where we are on this. But I'll take any questions or comments on this. Does anyone want to just input or ask any questions on this?
Which bill is this now you're referring to? Sorry, I missed that part.
Sorry, the draft Constitution 18 Amendment Bill, which is the expropriation without compensation.
Oh, I can't rush us with that one.
No, exactly. So they sent it off on Thursday, and I sent it back to say, it's, you can't expect us to give comment by Friday. And then they wrote back to say that they can't give us an extension, which I wanted, obviously, to table that bill a year before this week so we can discuss. And then I wrote back to say, unfortunately, the timelines are too short. We'll wait until the bill comes before us and we do our normal public participation process. So that's where we are. So we'll wait until I think Parliament will approve that bill today, I think, today, tomorrow, and that will go to the NCOP. Then it will come to us and we'll do our normal lawmaking process like we normally do bills in the province. Honorable Philanda, I see your hand is up also.
Yes, Chair. I followed the paper trail in terms of communication as was submitted to the committee. And I want to just concur that we deal with the matter in terms of the process once it comes to the committee. So I fully concur. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Did the legal advisor wanted to give any input on this topic, or Advocate Andre Leroux?
Chairperson, thank you. I have no input, but if there are questions, I'm here.
Thank you. Colleagues, any further input on this particular matter?
I would like the legal person who said now that he'll give input. What is the legal position? The decision by the chairperson asks for more time. The response that no, there's no more time. What is the legal constitutional implications in terms of cooperative governance? If a province is not ready with anything, can it be forced down? Can they go ahead without us? What is the legal interpretation of that provision, please?
Chairperson, just briefly, so the draft bill was referred to the legislature in terms of section 74, subsection 5 of the Constitution. And what the Constitution provides for there is an opportunity to legislatures to express their views on the bill. which is obviously a process that precedes the formal lawmaking process that we are all accustomed to in terms of Section 76 and 74 and so on. I certainly agree. I've already indicated that giving a period of less than a week for a legislature to express those views certainly seems like an unreasonably truncated timeline, especially as the chairperson has already indicated and Member Murray has already indicated that this is a very complicated bill. So from a legal perspective, yes, certainly I agree that there's a strong argument to be made that this was not a reasonable opportunity to the legislature to express its views as provided for in Section 74, subsection 5. Which I also think that's probably why the committee communicated its displeasure with that short timeline. Thank you.
Can I address you, Chair?
Of course you can.
Chairperson, thank you. Having received, and Mr. Leroux is a very competent legal personality, Ms. Onraad, he's given us a viewpoint, and I know if there's 5 lawyers, there's 5 points of view, that I know. But nevertheless, we have a legal advice to stand on. I think we shouldn't be rushed into this, Chair. I think provinces need to show some mettle. They are too easily browbeaten by national. We're not a level of government, we're a sphere of government. The one is not below the other one. We just have different responsibilities. And I think we should stick to it. Don't rush us into something which can have negative implications for us. We all have different constituencies. My constituency and your constituency, Chairman, is not the constituency of the minister. She has a different constituency. So we will stick by my suggestion is we tell them, I'm sorry, we need more time to go through this, and we living in abnormal times. It's not normal. We're living under COVID. We can't always get even quorums at our committees. There's so many legal things we can throw at her. What if we call a committee meeting and 2 of them are sick with COVID and we couldn't have a meeting? You say we must just rush it through? No ways. I think you should stick to your decisions.
Thank you, Honourable Maria. Honourable Tlego.
Yeah, thanks, Chairman. I think your response was a very progressive one.
Yeah.
Considering the fact that the bill itself is a very sensitive matter that we are dealing with in terms of land. We cannot take shortcuts and when we're dealing with it. It's a very sensitive matter that needs a proper and a broader consultation. And we need to sell this idea to the people. And when we are talking as the Parliament of Western Cape, we should talk on behalf of the people of the Western Cape and as government. Say that as government, this is our position. So we can't be forced to a rushed kind of arrangement. I think somehow the National Assembly is recklessly handling this matter, and it might have dire consequences if we are not treating it with the sensitivity it deserves. We are all in anticipation of what they want to implement nationally, and of which we can't be drawn to such kind of arrangement. It's not our baby. Tina, we must follow the necessary procedure and process and ensure that we do a broader consultation as expected. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, colleagues. I think that is everybody's displeasure is noted, and perhaps I'll just send a follow-up letter just to express our displeasure at the committee in the way that it has been communicated to us. Any objections to that?
No.
Thank you. Everybody concurs. Members, is there any resolutions from this committee that you want us to take forward? The DG did indicate he's going to send us through the minutes of those 8 cases, or the status of those 8 cases. On Cromeria, was there anything else that they were supposed to send through? Sorry, the status of the 8 forensic cases they've investigated, and just tell us on report on what's happening with those. That's the only thing I can remember from this meeting. Wasima, did I miss anything else? Colleagues, can you still hear me?
No. Yes, I can hear you, Chairperson.
Okay.
Chair is honorable leader of the opposition in this meeting or not?
Yes, he is. So Wasima, there was nothing else that I've missed, right?
You know, nothing on my side.
Thank you, colleagues. That means that that's the last item. We'll send off the letter as we all agreed to. And then, colleagues, this meeting is then adjourned.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Bye-bye, Mr. Treko. Well done. Thanks, Cameron.
So. Thanks, Chair. Bye-bye, Mr.
And Mr. Brunkhuis and everybody.
Thank you, Wasima. Thank you, ICT.
Yeah.